This area was the original station for the Kansas City, Fort Scott, and Gulf Railroad, and that came in here in the 1874. And then by the 1882, they had built a beautiful station here that was all brick and very Victorian looking. And at the other end, and we would have the Harvey House. And the Harvey House would be was a wooden structure down there. And what really kind of was a precursor to push them to build the new station and build the new Harvey House is, you had the Harvey House people asking, but the other thing was, after World War I was over, all the doughboys were coming back. And this place was just a mass with people, and the station was old. It, like I said, had been built in the 1880s, and the Harvey House was this little bitty place. Not much wider than the Hotel of Terror over there. And so they really wanted something bigger, and that kind of goes back into Fred Harvey's whole reason for doing the Harvey House. In 1923, the Frisco Railroad decided they were going to expand the station. And they actually encased the brick with stucco. They wanted a Spanish Mission flavor because that's what was popular at the time. And that included a massive Harvey House section over here. Okay. So as you walk over here, what's the only thing that's really left outside the foundation is we actually have the floors of the Harvey House dining area. This, you see the foundation of the train station all the way around and down this way. Underneath the overpass, then that would have been also platform areas where they had covered platforms to board trains. But this here, the tile work, this is the section that was the actual Harvey House. And that's what we actually see here in the bottom. This was what coming in the front door, and you can actually see what the original Harvey House dining area looked like when it opened on November 4th of 1926. The station on top, it would open up December the 24th of 1926. And then right here, this would have been one of the main counters. You can see where it kind of loops around. And so they would have had, and you can see where the bar stools, where you would have sat. Basically, we got the lunchroom here at the lunch and dining where we're currently standing, and then the kitchen would be back over here, and that's where the brick changes to like a concrete, and then you got storage. So if we walk this way, we're going to actually get into the main waiting room. When they would come here, I mean, most people would be here, and then they would be coming in the front over here to come into the main part of the station. And the waiting room was large. The old waiting room held less than 100 people. The new waiting room held over 300 people. So this is part of the original building, and this was one of the I-beams, the metal I-beams. Now that Mr. Johnson would have put that in back in 1926.
Now who's Mr. Johnson?
W.W. Johnson, Will Johnson, he was the contractor who rebuilt the station. So we are now over in this section.
Okay.
And so this is where you would have walked in for the front, so we're closer down here. And this was all paved with brick. You know, when this opened up in the 20s, one of the whole reason that Fred Harvey built the Harvey House system was he was working for the Santa Fe Railroad. And when you're traveling, you knew in the 1870s that every time you got off a train, you didn't know what your food was going to be like. Was it going to be ready on time? Were you going to miss your train? Were you going to get overcharged? Were you even going to get the food? And these were troublesome for the railroads because they were trying to expand their business. So he proposed the idea of starting up the Harvey House chains. The problem that he ran into was that the guys that he hired, because at that time it was more fashionable to hire male waiters. That's what most everybody did. They had male waiters that would wait on you. But he had a problem with them getting in brawls and drinking a lot and showing up with black eyes to work. And he said, that's just not going to work. So some of the wives stepped in and said that they would work for him, and the manager of one of the restaurants he was managing said, this is working out great, why don't we hire all women? So they started advertising in the paper, and their stipulations were you had to be between 18 and 30 years of age, you could not be married, you had to be of a slim build, somewhat attractive, and they would pay you a whopping $17 a month, and they would provide you room and board. And you had a dormitory, and they would put you up. They would provide you with your attire. For those of you that have seen the Harvey House Girls, you've seen them in the long black dresses and then the white aprons and the high collars. You were supposed to be of high moral character, because at that time, most women that had come to the city and left the farms, they were pretty much supposed to be school marms, maybe working at a sewing factory, something of that nature. So he really elevated the whole concept of women being waitresses. And people loved being known as a Harvey girl. It was something of great respect. And so the rule of thumb was, if you worked for him for 9 to 12 months and you did not get in trouble, you didn't break curfew, you didn't get married, you didn't get caught with a guy, then they would allow you to take a vacation on them on the system somewhere and stay, and then you could come back. And then if you wanted to work for them again, you could, but now you had seniority, so if there was an opening in another Harvey house that was a more desirable city, you could request for it. They were trying to create an image that was not seen in other restaurants. They wanted to see this was a safe place, you were going to get consistently good food, you're always going to get somebody happy to wait on you, and this was especially helpful during World War I. Because they saw a lot of people coming in that may not even make it back, and they may be some of the last smiling, happy faces they got to see. People had such an appreciation for Fred Harvey's restaurant down here that even through the early 50s, people came down here after church on special occasions to meet people and to eat at the Fred Harvey House, and they just loved it. And kind of like why people today like fast food chains, because you know when you go to McDonald's, in theory, from one to the other, it's going to be consistent, same price, same thing. And the Harvey houses were kind of the same thing, because if the railroad had their own thing, there's a good chance that it may not work properly, or the food quality is going to vary quite a bit, and it may not be done on time. Their kitchens were staffed in such a way that if you got off the train and you ordered something at the counter, you could get it and get out and go and get back on the next train or the train you just got off of. So it was very important, but I think for Springfield, the folks that lived from the 20s through the early 50s, it was just really a place to make memories. And a lot of people, anybody who's been there, you sit down with them for a while and talk, they're going to tell you some really wonderful stories. And just watching the trains and meeting people here, and then everybody said the food was always excellent. So, and it wasn't horribly expensive. Even when newer and newer restaurants came into town, people would still gravitate here to eat. So for the Harvey House, it was a big deal for Springfield. And we had one of the largest ones around, especially in Missouri. So I think that anybody who ever worked for there, I'm sure they did it with honor.